This is the B&O Sports Show with your hosts, Tanner Ballard and Garrett Otto.
Welcome to the B&O Sports Show. I'm your host, Garrett Otto, alongside Tanner Ballard. I have made it back, kind of. Still here with slight illness, slight cough, but I've got my best friend Hall's triple soothing action next to me here. It's going to help me pull through. How are you, Tanner?
I'm doing all right. I'm not feeling the effects of the weather as much as you are, but glad that you could join us. Definitely glad. Desperately needed you back.
Yeah, I don't know. I couldn't miss 2 weeks in a row. I think that's actually what was, bringing me down.
Really?
You know? I was already sick, and then I missed a week of this, and my body was, immediately thrown off. And then we had some real issues.
Well, fair enough. We're glad you're back. Glad that we could have you back. This is the B&O Sports Show, after all, isn't it? All right. Well,
yeah.
We had a fantastic night of college football last night because, in fact, it was the national championship. That's right. It was Glendale, Arizona, home of the Cardinals, and it was a heck of a game. I mean, Garrett, I was watching this game, and how tight it was, how closely contested it was going into that fourth quarter. I think it definitely proved that Alabama and Clemson were the two best teams in the nation.
Yeah, and it was good to see that after a lot of questionable bowl choices or questionable picks for bowls, games that, for the most part ended up in a lot of blowouts and not good games to watch. It was finally good to see one that you knew was the right pick. You knew it was the two right teams that were supposed to be there, and they really put on a show for us.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's just go ahead and recap this game now. It was, like we said, it was really closely contested. I mean, it was almost just completely back and forth, you know. Alabama would go down the field, they would score a touchdown. Derrick Henry broke a big one to open up the game, and then, Clemson would respond right back. Deshaun Watson looked really good early. He had that touchdown pass that was just on the money. He was making a lot of good throws, and then he threw an interception that I think turned the tide, pardon the pun. But twice in that game, the first time I thought, it was really costly when Clemson ended up leaving O.J. Howard, the big tight end. They dropped just an absolute egg, leaving him wide open in coverage. The first time was, obviously costly because he walked in, but the last one was rough too.
Yeah, one thing I noticed in this game is I think it proved, alongside with the Stanford-Iowa game, the Rose Bowl, I think it proved that the Heisman finalists really deserved to be the Heisman finalist. Whether or not Derrick Henry, and I really think that he solidified his spot as the Heisman in this game with, 3 touchdowns. He affected the game very significantly. But between him and Deshaun Watson and then Christian McCaffrey putting up, record numbers throughout the season and then great numbers in the Rose Bowl, it proved the Heisman committee right when maybe the playoff committee had some questions raised with the first two games being more or less blowouts. The Alabama game especially a blowout, but Clemson, Oklahoma ended up being rough too. So the Heisman really got to win this year, the Heisman committee, but I don't know about the playoff committee this year. I thought that was just something that kind of popped out in this game. It was a great game overall. It was fun to watch. It's one of those games where, as a sports fan, you can sit there the entire game and be content with watching it all the way through the end. All the credit in the world to the Clemson Tigers. Still underdogs going into this game, even though they were undefeated. Great for them. What a great season overall. It's tough to go and face someone like Alabama, someone like Nick Saban in the national championship, but they really put up a fight. Great season to them, and that this is going to prove great for their future with recruiting and Dabo Swinney, awesome coach, great guy, he's fun to watch. So it's going to be good for that program in general, but got to give credit to him this season.
Yeah, and I think they've got nothing but good things to look forward to, especially next year. As far as I know, Deshaun Watson planning to return. They've definitely got a bright future for next year. And going back to the game, Garrett, real fast, you mentioned going up against Nick Saban. What ended up being the reason, for the Crimson Tide winning the game, I thought was definitely special teams. If it was Nick Saban, you'd assume it was, who made the call for the onside kick. Alabama scores, and they take the onside kick, completely shell shocks Clemson. It was so perfectly executed. Clemson, I don't know if you noticed, but they were mentioning this. I think it was Kirk Herbstreit was mentioning on the broadcast that Clemson had their kickoff return team was really tight, kind of tight to the central, so that the wide area was a bit open. Alabama perfectly exposed it with that onside kick. So that really just turned the tables in that game. And
I thought it was interesting because Alabama had been kicking that way the entire game. If you looked at how they lined up, it would make you think that Clemson would have gotten a hint that maybe something was coming, but they kicked that way the entire game, and I have no idea if that they had this kind of in the back of their head if they needed to use it at some point. But finally, when they did need to use it and they come out in that formation, Clemson doesn't notice anything. They don't see anything different, and Alabama is able to execute that well. And credit to Adam Griffith, he put that in a perfect spot where only his teammate could get it, and the Clemson players couldn't. But it was just interesting to see. Maybe Nick Saban had that in his mind, because that's something that you could easily see him doing with the genius of a coach that he is.
And it only seems appropriate. It was these two teams that were just battling so hard. They were just so deadlocked because they had such immense talent on the field. It seems appropriate that something off the field, a coach's decision off the field, would make the difference. So, there was the onside kick, and then there was the special teams return from Kenyon Drake, who just flew past everybody to score a touchdown. So special teams are really, in my opinion, definitely what did it for Alabama. Again, like Garrett was saying, credit to Clemson, because they fought back, hard no matter what in that game, especially after going down in the fourth quarter. So without a doubt, the best game of the year. Of course, you would expect that in a national championship, but I'd say one of the best national championships in probably the past several years. That was about as good as it gets for a football game.
Yeah. Exactly. Both teams finishing 14-1, looked even the entire time, and Alabama just proved they had it. And I think it really does come down to the experience factor. When the teams are so even, I think Nick Saban's experience and the whole coaching, the entire coaching staff having that experience of winning now 4 out of 7 national championships, which is crazy, 4 championships in the past 7 years. I think that gives it to them, and that these guys are going to be a force for years to come. It doesn't look like they're ever going to go away, but maybe sometime once Nick Saban's gone. But it's going to be fun to watch both these teams and all the teams in the upcoming season. But Tanner, we had a great season this year. How do you think it stacked up overall, the 2015/16 college football season?
I thought it was a great season. Really enjoyable. You had, of course, Clemson making the undefeated run all the way up to this national championship game. I think there was a lot of people that doubted them the entire season, and they kept proving that they were capable. And, you had big stories of Leonard Fournette and LSU making that midseason run where he was just, an absolute beast, and I mean, he still is a beast. You had Christian McCaffrey with the big-time record-breaking numbers, breaking Barry Sanders' record. I mean, for the majority of the season, it was just really fun to watch. Of course, a lot of people would say, wow, Clemson was locked in at number 1 the entire season. That can't really be that fun, but it was enjoyable to see what was going on behind them, as the season went on and as it went into bowl season, because ultimately I think a lot of everybody was expecting them to be in the national championship, so it was kind of a race to see who would be there to play them. So I thought it was a really great season. Do you have any thoughts on that yourself, Garrett?
I completely agree. Great season. I wish the bowl season was a little better, but that only makes up a small part of the season. So, but man, overall, in the end, I guess Nick Saban decided to bring his own guts, and he ended up winning the championship because I find, you got to take advice from other coaches sometimes, and Nick Saban did. He won him the game. Arguably, it won him the game, that onside kick and the Kenyon Drake play. But, no, I mean, I think in my mind, it was one of the more enjoyable seasons to watch over the past couple of years. So, great. Sets the bar high for next year, though.
Exactly. So, while we're still on college football real fast, as we've wrapped up, you mentioned, and I just want to have this discussion real fast, because you mentioned how the bowl season wasn't that, great, and I would completely agree. There was a lot of blowout games, just a lot of games that, weren't that competitive, weren't that enjoyable. But, so I was looking at the TV ratings last night, or rather today, about the game last night, and the ratings were actually lower. Get this, the rating for this national championship game was lower than the Houston Texans versus Kansas City Chiefs game in the NFL playoffs. That's really upsetting as a football fan. And anyways, the reason I bring this up, I wonder if the bowl season, with how bad it was, had a kind of created a tainted image on college football and made less people want to watch this game, because of the amount of blowouts and whatever that was going on during the bowl season. That just seems absurd to me because this game was so good,
I think that may have a factor, but I think the NFL, NCAA factor also plays in. But really, in my opinion, what I think would be the biggest thing to me is that the Kansas City Texans game, if I'm not mistaken, was on a Saturday.
Right. And this is a Monday night.
As opposed to the national championship being a Monday night game. It started at 7:30 Central, at least for me, 8:30 on the East Coast. Kind of a not as primetime game, just because you're going to have a lot of people that don't want to stay up for the entire game. And then there's the people that now they might be few and far between that if they can't see the whole game, they'll record it and watch it some other time when they can see it all the way through. So I think there's a couple factors. I would hope that football fans realize that this was obviously the better matchup in terms of like a good game to watch. I've always thought college football is more enjoyable to watch. I don't know. That's not good for ESPN though.
They don't appreciate that.
I don't know if you checked out what happened. They had every single one of their networks dedicated to this game. They just had different like gamecasts or whatever, different versions of the game going. I swear I looked on WatchESPN.com or ESPN3.com. They must have had 10 plus different versions, and it's like the regular game. There's like the Alabama, radio call, Clemson radio call, ESPN Voices where they have people commenting on it. That's one heck of a move by ESPN if it doesn't pay off, which is, if you're, as you're mentioning, it didn't pay off. I don't know. I heard that they had to pay back or they had to pay back companies for advertising for the original college football playoff games.
It was a big sum of money, wasn't it, though? I can't remember if it was $2 million or $20 million.
Yeah. No, it was $20 million that they had to pay back to these companies, yeah. Not a small number, no.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate. That is really unfortunate. But
it would be a small number if they end up winning that Powerball.
Oh, that is very true.
That would help them out a little bit.
That's true. Hopefully one of those guys that...
$1.5 million right now.
Man. What?
I don't know, Tanner. By the time we record this next podcast, we could be using, like, the prime time studio equipment. Studio. We could have our own place in downtown LA.
Start our own broadcasting network.
Yeah, the B&O Sports Network. Check it out.
The dream is real, man.
We might
the dream
have coverage
is real.
of the Super Bowl 51.
The B&O Sports Network. Oh, man. Well, so, I think that about wraps up college football. That about wraps up the college football season. How crazy is that? It just seemed like it flew by. But another year, another college football season. It was a good one. Can't wait until the next one.
It's going to be exciting. Man, one thing I do love about college football is the recruiting. It kind of sets up every season as... every season's always a brand new season, but it feels like constant new players to look out for. It's one of my favorite things about college.
Yeah, absolutely. It's fun to see. It's fun to see some big-name freshmen come in there and do some things, make a big impact. That's pretty cool. Well, I think that about does it for college football. Do you have any last words on college football, Garrett?
I don't think so. Thanks to all the teams for giving us some good viewing, I guess.
Absolutely.
That
is about it. Yeah, it was a good season. Looking forward to the next one. So, as we move on in this episode 6 of the B&O Sports Show, we've got a nice little story here for any of you out there who may or may not be soccer fans. The biggest award of them all was going on this past... Actually, it was yesterday, wasn't it? That, in fact, is the Ballon d'Or. Gosh, I'm never going to be able to pronounce that. The FIFA Ballon d'Or it's awarded to the best soccer player in the world. And, of course, they had some other presentations last night, like the FIFA Team of the Year, which was the best... basically just a team of, the best players in the world that had the best seasons this past year. They had the best women's soccer player in the world, which shout out to the Miss Carly Lloyd, who won that award. She, of course, led the U.S. women's national team to a big World Cup victory this past year. So congratulations to her on winning the women's award. That's really special for an American. I believe she's the third American to win that award behind Mia Hamm and Abby Wambach. So that's really special. But the Ballon d'Or, of course, is the biggest of them all, the granddaddy of them all, and that award went to Lionel Messi. So Lionel Messi, the Barcelona and Argentina national, he did win that award. And Garrett, I know you're a soccer fan. I don't know how often you get to watch Messi, but the age-old debate of who's better, Ronaldo or Messi. And recently, Messi, he's just there's something special about the way he plays, isn't there?
Yeah, he's those two really seem to be in a class of their own. But yeah, there's something about the way Messi plays. It seems like at any moment he can create a goal if he needs to for his team. Every time he's on the ball, he's kind of just has that threat. If you want to relate it back to American football, it's like, say, a good punt returner. Every time he touches the ball, he has a chance to go and take one back. Every time Messi touches the ball, he can maneuver his way through the defense, unlike, I think, anyone in the game today. Incredible goal-scoring threat. Thought this was well-deserved for him this year. Again, it's seemingly always between Cristiano Ronaldo and Lionel Messi, but I think he definitely deserved it this year. He is a fantastic player.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, and just some, some of these stats from him playing in his own league in Spain and the Champions League, which is, basically the best teams in Europe compete for this Champions League trophy. So those two, leagues combined, Messi had 39 goals and 19 assists, 212 shots, 18% shot conversion percentage, which, may not seem very high, but trust me, that's amazing. I mean, he really, just the way that they call, they've been pushing really hard this, campaign calling soccer, or football, as they say, the beautiful game, and I think Lionel Messi embodies what the beautiful game is, the way he plays, the way he dribbles, just through defenses, like Garrett was saying, the way that he can create chances. They call him the little magician because the ball just never seems to leave his foot when he's dribbling. And yeah, just his ability to finish plays off, to pass the ball and, find his teammates open. It's unmatched. It really is unmatched. So I think he really did deserve that award. And, man, Barcelona, they call it MSN, Messi, Suarez, Neymar. Those front three guys, they are lethal. The best team in the world right now. So congratulations to Lionel Messi on winning the Ballon d'Or. Fantastic accomplishment for him. So, that being said, it is time to jump into the NFL. Now, of course, this was an NFL weekend. First weekend of the playoffs, wild card weekend. Had 4 games this weekend, and they were eventful. They were eventful. Well, I take that back. 2 games were eventful. 2 games, maybe not. The first one, let's start off. Chiefs and Texans out in Houston. Got any thoughts on that one, Garrett?
Wow. Not exciting game.
No.
Chiefs. I mean, when it's 30-0, like, there's only so much to talk about.
Yeah.
The Texans D seemed like the only chance they had, and the Texans D didn't, step up as much. But also, credit to the Texans D, like, it's kind of hard to stop a team from scoring 30 when your quarterback turns the ball over 5 times.
5 times.
4 picks. Brian Hoyer was just, oh boy, he was terrible in this game. He was really bad. He had a couple of interceptions where they were getting down, they were getting ready to score.
Yeah, that one.
It seemed like, when I was watching the game, like, they'd get into the red zone, and I'd, be afraid to watch Brian Hoyer, because I just knew he was going to screw up. I just knew it.
Well, it's when they brought in, when they brought in J.J. Watt and Vince Wilfork to try and pound the ball into the end zone there I just really think that's not a good look for your team. If you're having to bring in your big defensive guys to do the offense, to try and pound the football, I understand that J.J. Watt's huge and Vince Wilfork is, huger, if that's a word. But that should not happen. You have a running back for a reason. You have to figure out a way to put the ball in the end zone, and using J.J. Watt is not the answer. But yeah, I if I remember right, it was that drive where they were in the red zone and J.J. Watt couldn't get in the end zone, and then Brian Hoyer comes out there the next play and throws the interception on the goal line.
It was miserable. It was a miserable game. I feel bad for Texans fans.
Well,
they put up a decent season, like they were above 500, and they got to playoffs, and then it all collapsed in one game at home.
No, yeah. Not to be fair, but the Kansas City Chiefs didn't play a phenomenal game. Now, I mean, they didn't have to play a phenomenal game, obviously, but I don't know. I'm not terribly convinced about them because they came into the game with a 10-game win streak, right? I don't know. I expected them to be better.
We'll see. I mean, they'll get their test here. Coming up in the next round, we'll definitely get to see what they're all about against the Patriots. I think that's an easy Patriots win for me, at least. I mean, the Chiefs they've looked good. They've been hot, but yeah, they didn't lay down a performance this week that made you think, okay, they have a chance against Belichick and the Patriots next week, which is something I think they really needed to do. They really needed to put a statement out there, and they kind of came up short.
So, so that was that. 30-0. Kansas City walks away with that one. Relatively easy game for them. So they're moving on. The Texans are staying put in Houston. So that was on Saturday. That was like the first game. And then the last game of the night was the Pittsburgh Steelers and Cincinnati Bengals. Now this game, I swear, man. I mean, it was pretty tight. The whole game was tight. It was a defensive battle. Both offenses really couldn't come up with anything. I mean, you take a look at the numbers. The Bengals didn't score until the fourth quarter. The Steelers were putting up 6 points, 9 points. The offenses weren't really producing all that much. But, oh man, what happened in that fourth quarter, those last couple seconds, I'm sure something, that the whole sports world has been talking about since Saturday, or at least the football world. I just feel so bad for A.J. McCarron and Andy Dalton, especially A.J. McCarron, because he worked that team back into the lead. They were in a position to win it, right, with scoring 16 points in the fourth quarter. He led the offense down the field and did what he had to do to get them in front. And then you end up having just two absolutely selfish plays from those two Bengals players on the defense. Vontaze Burfict. Garrett, I don't know if you got to see this, but I remember watching, and I can't remember who the commentators were, but I saw, they were saying, oh man, watch out for Vontaze Burfict. Like, that guy is going nuts, the dude was on the sideline, shoving his coaches, and he was just constantly getting up in players' faces, and the commentators were like, they're going to have to watch out for him because he's going to do something stupid. And what happened? He did something stupid. He absolutely just cheap shot right to the head of Antonio Brown. I mean, the way that Antonio Brown went down after taking the shot to the head definitely looked like he was, unconscious, or at least, just not all there. I mean, he went down in a heap, which is scary. So that's a 15-yard penalty, obviously. Just a stupid play, unneeded, selfish. I mean, football's a team game. You play to win the game, as the famous Herm Edwards. Man, speaking of Herm Edwards, Garrett, we gotta see if he reacted to this, because that would have been an unbelievable reaction. I don't know if you've seen some of the stuff that he does, talking about how football is, players have become too selfish nowadays. This is prime territory for him to just sound off.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of his rants. He gets
heated. He's really heated.
There was one specific incident. I wish I could think of the exact incident, but it was he went on ESPN and he went off. I mean, I've never seen him so animated, but yeah, it would have been fun to see his reaction.
Yeah, I mean, and he's really like, just the old-fashioned play as a team, play to win the game kind of coach. So obviously that would have upset him. So that cost them 15 yards. Meanwhile, controversy sets in when Steelers coach Joey Porter, I believe linebackers coach, comes on the field. Now, as I understand, Joey Porter was kind of this way during his career as a linebacker, like to kind of get up in your face, that kind of guy. He must have said something or did something that Pac-Man Jones reacted negatively to, and Pac-Man Jones went to shove him, in the process shoved a referee, which, as you know, will guarantee you a penalty. And, so that resulted in another 15 yards and another selfish play. It's so mind-boggling. It's upsetting. I'm not a Bengals fan by any standard, but when you watch a football game and you're a football fan and you see two players acting selfishly, not thinking about the team, they're not thinking about the team, they're thinking about themselves first, just act in this way, it just ruins everything. It's upsetting. It was sick to your stomach type of stuff, when you saw these things go down, because then the Steelers are there, they have an easy chip shot field goal to win the game. And that's what ended up happening. The final score of 18-16, they scored that field goal, which guaranteed them victory. So, certainly unfortunate for Bengals fans. As I say that, Bengals fans really showed their lack of class. I don't know if you saw this, Garrett, but when Ben Roethlisberger, he got hurt in that game, hurt his shoulder, I think. When does he not hurt his shoulder? He was being carted off, and they were throwing just all sorts of stuff at him. They were throwing water bottles and beer bottles and throwing trash at him like that. That is ultimately, as a sports fan, that really upsets me when any fan base does that. I don't know about you.
It's really humiliating for the Bengals fans, and especially such a legend like Ben Roethlisberger. But going back to the two incidents, you mentioned that they weren't thinking of the team; they were only thinking of themselves. They weren't thinking of the season. Ultimately, which affects them. It affects the team too, but this was their season. You think about all the work these players put in the weight room, getting up, going to practice every day, the travel on the road. If you think about truly all what these players put into a 16-game season and the preseason before, it's an unbelievable amount of work. An amount of work that only a professional athlete would understand fully. And to give it away on two plays like that is disgraceful. It's going to stick with them for a long time. Fontaine is suspended for 3 games, so he'll have 3 games to think about it when he's sitting on the sideline if he's still on the Bengals next year. But it's disgraceful for them. I'm sure their teammates will show them some remorse, but I would hope that their teammates stood up to them and told them how selfish it was and how just silly of an act it was. Now, maybe you wouldn't want to see that from teammates. You'd want to see them kind of sticking up for them, but it cost them a season. And all those other players put in the same amount of work, and it was thrown away. So I'd be pretty upset if I were them. But, I mean...
It was...
Essentially, the Steelers get the win, but I'm sure not in the fashion that they wanted to.
No, yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I think definitely, guys like A.J. McCarron will feel that he did his part, and they should have come away with the win, and they should be playing next week. But unfortunately for them, unfortunately for their fans, that is not so. The Steelers are moving on. Cincinnati staying where they are. So that was that. Really an unfortunate event, that game. So then we jumped 2 games left into Sunday. Now Garrett, being the Seattle fan, he's requested that that we talk about the Vikings and Seahawks game last. So me being the Packers fan, the Packers game, they played the Redskins. They're playing in Washington, and they got off to a slow start. That is definitely fair to say. Rodgers going down with the sack. They had a huge goal line stand after the Redskins had an opportunity to score, and they didn't. They couldn't put the ball in the end zone on a pass, and so the Packers were able to hold them at the goal line, hold them to a field goal, which was a huge momentum boost. And really what you started to see past the second quarter and into the second half, or once it got to the second quarter, rather, and into the second half, I really think you started to see the Packers of, the past couple years. I think Aaron Rodgers looked a lot more confident. His receivers were getting open. The offensive line played fantastic, and the Redskins, their offense really couldn't do much because the Packers were able to either shut them down or, they were making mistakes. So, for me, it was, the perfect game. The score ended up being 35-18. The Packers won. It was the perfect game for me just, because it was, the Redskins were a good team, don't get me wrong, but it was a team that, the Packers expected to beat, and that's the kind of confidence booster that they needed, hopefully, going into next week. So I thought it was a really good win for us.
Yeah, I just want to credit the Redskins on a good season. A lot of credit to Kirk Cousins. I'm excited to see what he can do in the future. Finally getting his chance after a couple years on the bench, being overshadowed by RG3.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's Kirk Cousins' time. He proved that he can do it, that he belongs in the NFL. So I think this team has some upside, especially in a conference that doesn't always bring the most talent. So it'll be fun to see that Redskins-Cowboys rivalry almost renewed and actually be good games, which we haven't seen for a while. But, man, as you said, the last game, not actually the last game, it was first game on Sunday. But I think at least the more interesting of the two on Sunday, the Seahawks and the Minnesota Vikings. In a sub-zero game, the wind chills were actually like -20, -25, which would be terrible to play in. I was walking my dog the other day, and it was like -15 out. Wind chill was like -15. I was walking my dog, and after like 4 minutes, I was just freezing cold, and I was thinking about those poor fans and those poor players. But, man, this game, I'm telling you, I can't stand the playoffs with the Seahawks sometimes. Between this and the game against your Packers last year, I thought they were kind of similar.
Yeah.
Minnesota pulls out to a 9-0 lead going into the fourth quarter, as I'm just sitting exasperated on my couch. I don't know what to do. Russell Wilson pulls a little Russell Wilson magic. When he missed the snap and he picks it up, avoids a defender, and then throws it to Tyler Lockett for a huge gain, and then gets the touchdown. It seems like a play that only Russell Wilson would make. We kick the field goal, go up 10-9, and inevitably collapse again. Throw away a chance to win the game as Minnesota's marching down the field. And Blair Walsh comes up to kick his 27-yarder, and as everyone knows, the laces not out, and he hooks it. He hooks a 27-yarder. And honestly, my first reaction when he hooked that is I laughed, and I just said, holy cow, we get so lucky every year. This is the second year in a row that Seattle has, from a Seattle fan.
Yeah.
I mean,
something happened, and
you can say, oh, well, throughout the course of the game, Minnesota shouldn't have come down to a kick, blah, 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 blah. Last year, a football hits off of some guy's face mask on an onside kick, and this year the laces aren't out.
Right.
I don't get it. I'm happy to be moving on, but questionable
Yeah.
victory.
Well, I think
it's crazy. I don't know.
From perspective, of a Seahawks fan, I guess, or rather even from perspective of a Vikings fan who wants to blame Blair Walsh, that game was not on Blair Walsh, the result of that game. I mean, if you look at, what ended up happening with the numbers, I mean, Adrian Peterson, the Vikings had Adrian Peterson, mind you, and he only ended up with 45 yards on 23 carries. That's awful for Adrian Peterson especially. And what string running back are the Seahawks on? Fourth? Third or fourth?
Technically, I think going into the season, Christine Michael was our third. Yeah.
So, you've got a third string running back for Seattle. You've got Adrian Peterson, who's supposed to be, one of, if not the best running backs in the game. And he's only got 45 yards. Their offense never scored. Blair Walsh scored all 9 points for the Vikings. Offense never scored. They couldn't finish the drives. Teddy Bridgewater had a decent game, 17 of 24 for 146 yards. That's not bad. But I've seen so many Vikings fans blaming Blair Walsh and calling for his head because he missed a 27-yard field goal. But why don't you look at the numbers that your offense put up and think, wow, we should have definitely scored some touchdowns. We definitely should have put the ball into the end zone for, whatever reason that they weren't able to do it. And maybe it's just a stout Seattle defense, as they always are, but I don't agree with people who are blaming Blair Walsh for that loss.
I think really overall, this was not a good game. It wasn't good to watch. Very little offense. I mean, I think the weather had a big factor in it, honestly. Never played football in that type of weather. I don't play football in general, but never played football in that weather. But I figure, I mean, it's hard to pass the ball, and it was two good run defense teams. But man, yeah, really looking for a better game with Seattle this upcoming week, and I think we'll definitely get it against Carolina. But just not good from either team. But Seattle escapes with a win there. So, but looking ahead to next week, I think as we just kind of take a look at the rundown by schedule, Tanner, first game we got is the return of Tom Brady. I'm surprised we made it a week without him, but it's going to be the Chiefs and the Patriots going up against each other, and definitely it'll be a good game. I'm really hoping that the Chiefs stay in it more than they may.
Yeah.
I think if we kind of are being honest with ourselves, we'll see. I think this game comes down to how the Chiefs' defense plays and how the Chiefs' offense manages the game. Because I think if you give Tom Brady extra possessions, he's going to kill you for it.
Yeah, and I would agree completely. I mean, Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, especially with the experience that they have in the playoffs, the Chiefs are really going to have to improve compared to the way that they played against Houston. So, yeah, like you said, I hope it's a competitive game, but especially in Foxborough, I think it's going to be really tough for Kansas City to knock off the Patriots. So that's the first game on Saturday. The next game is going to be the night game in Glendale, Arizona, against Green Bay, the Packers and the Cardinals. A nice little rematch of the second to last game of the season for both of these teams, where Arizona beat the Packers pretty soundly. I'm really looking forward to the game. I think it's going to be fun. I think, you've got the combination of the Packers having a little bit of momentum, some confidence boosted after beating Washington. You also have kind of a revenge factor that they're looking for, after losing to the Cardinals so bad last time around. Then you've got that sound Arizona team who just played so well on defense against the Packers, and then their offense also produced very well. But, you take a look, Garrett, the last game, the Cardinals had a tough time against the Seahawks.
Yeah, I really look at that. I wonder in that game how much the Cardinals were showing and how much effort they were putting out, especially when they realized that Carolina was going to win their game, because that was the only reason Arizona had to win. I think it was definitely a win for Seattle, and I mean that in a way that I don't think the fact that they won had anything to do with Arizona not trying and giving them the win. So I think Seattle was a better team in that game, but I don't know what Arizona put out there.
Not sure if they showed up to the game completely.
But it does make you question. Yeah, it makes you question, and it might make the Cardinals question, and then now the Packers are coming off of a good win. This is definitely, I think, definitely the better matchup of the day. It might be one of the better ones out of the four. There's some good games out there, but I think with the way the Cardinals handled them in Week 16, and now they're playing again, but definitely seems different. I think this is one of the top games. It's going to be really exciting. So
yeah, that's gonna be a fun game, and hopefully it'll be competitive all the way through. So then we have, going into Sunday, the first game on Sunday is going to be the other NFC matchup. That is, in fact, the great Carolina Panthers at home to the Seattle Seahawks. Now, of course, Garrett, you're the expert on Seattle here. I mean, just from my perspective, Seattle, if they play like they played against Minnesota, I don't think they have a chance to beat the Panthers. But do you see a weakness in this Carolina team, or do you see a way that the Seahawks will be able to get around them and end up winning?
I think that Carolina is a great team. I'm going to say some things coming up here that's going to make it sound like maybe not. But I think Carolina, I mean, they're 15-1 for a reason. Like, you can't ever take that away from a team. 15-1, they're 8-0 at home. They fully earned that. I think they fully earned the right to call themselves the best team in the league at the end of the season. My issue is that their strength of schedule was not great this year. They ended up facing only 4 teams that were above 500, 2 of which were Houston and Washington at 9-7, and the other 2 were Green Bay and Seattle. In that Seattle game, it was one of those where Seattle just, oh man, it's frustrating. We get to the fourth quarter and we just kind of collapsed. We threw it away like usual. I think it's going to be a great game. I really think Seattle can pull it out. I hope we can pull it out. If I give an honest opinion on who I think is going to win this game, I do think the Carolina Panthers will be moving on. Their defense has looked phenomenal, and Cam Newton has just looked unbelievable all year. He's an easy MVP for me. It's going to be a great game. I think Carolina ends up pulling it out. Seattle needs to stop that Carolina offense as soon as they can. They need to shut it off, shut it down, and they've got to get on the board early. Seattle's got to get ahead early if they want to win this game. I think the moment Carolina gets ahead, it might be over for Seattle. The defense is so solid that I think they can hold any lead that they get.
The Seahawks definitely need to have a really quick start to the game. I would probably agree that I could definitely see Carolina walking away with this one, but I wouldn't be surprised. I won't be surprised if the Seahawks win. Not that surprised. But that'll be definitely a good game. So that's the other NFC divisional playoff. And then the last of those games comes Sunday evening, and that is the Pittsburgh Steelers and Denver Broncos out in chilly Denver, Colorado. Now, of course, we have this game, Peyton Manning, making his return to the starting lineup. You have a Ben Roethlisberger who was injured against the Bengals. He came back, in the fourth quarter, but he really couldn't do much. I mean, when he went back out there to throw the ball, he could not really throw the ball that far, not with much power. So it'll be interesting to see how the Steelers do. Well, it'll be interesting to see how he is, because when Landry Jones went out there to play for the Steelers, I mean, he couldn't get anything going. So hopefully for Pittsburgh fans, Roethlisberger will be okay. I don't know. I feel like Denver is definitely the strongest team. I don't know, Garrett, would you be surprised if we see Denver, New England going up again at it in the AFC Conference Championship?
I would not be surprised. I think it kind of comes down to how Ben Roethlisberger is in this game. If he can play up to his full ability, I think they win this game. But any limitations to him is going to be a huge blow to them. Already, I mean, Antonio Brown hasn't been ruled out, but we would expect him to not play.
I believe D'Angelo Williams is also possibly injured, which would be huge.
Yeah, D'Angelo. Yeah, he missed that last game. The other running backs filled in okay for him. But the combination of the two being out and Ben Roethlisberger being injured really benefits the Broncos. They already have a great defense. Yeah. They've had a good defense all year.
Yeah. I would watch out.
So we'll see, but yeah, I could definitely see the Broncos versus the Patriots.
I would definitely watch out for, especially if Ben Roethlisberger starts the game and he's got a sore shoulder or whatnot. Those Broncos pass rushers, guys like Von Miller, they could really come after Roethlisberger hard, and they could end up hurting him more, than he already is. So that could be a real problem for Pittsburgh, but we'll see how he fares. That'll be a good one. That's, of course, Sunday night. So this Saturday and Sunday, man, NFL playoffs. NFL is coming to a close. It's kind of scary.
It's going to be great, though. All of these divisional matchups look fantastic.
Yeah.
So
this is a fantastic NFL playoffs. I mean, these teams are really, it's going to be fun. I'm really looking forward to those games. That about wraps it up for the NFL playoffs. Let's see. Any other NFL news that we have to get here? Well, let's see. Like Garrett said, Vontaze Burfict has been suspended 3 games. Got fined some money, I think. Just really doesn't matter to guys like him, football players, We talked last week about the 3 teams potentially moving to Los Angeles situation, that being the Oakland Raiders, San Diego Chargers, and St. Louis Rams. Recently, the NFL, the owners, they recommended a Carson project, which would move, an NFL team into the Carson area, into that Los Angeles area. That's big news. I was looking at this, Garrett, and I still think the San Diego Chargers are the number 1 team to be going in there, because everybody talks about how much the Rams seem to want to get out of St. Louis. The only reason they're leaving is because their owner, Stan Kroenke. I mean, he's really pushing for this team to get out of St. Louis, and he said some pretty harsh words about St. Louis. So, the Oakland Raiders, they're kind of sat back, not really pushing. So, I don't know. It would be. I think San Diego is still the number 1 on my list for getting to Los Angeles. It'd be cool.
I was just gonna say, I'd personally love to see Oakland get an upgrade. I think they're a really good upcoming team, and they're playing in a not so great stadium.
Right. Baseball stadium.
So I think it'd be good for the fans, for the franchise overall.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think it would be good for them to get themselves a new stadium and get themselves re-solidified in that on the other side of the bay there. So we'll see where that goes. It'll be looking forward to having a team in Los Angeles in the coming year, if not years. So that'll be fun. Any other NFL news or comments that you have, Garrett?
I think the only other thing, Adam Gase going to Miami, I think is more important for Chicago than it is for Miami. He seemed to be their bright point this year with Jay Cutler in the offense, and now he's gone. So we'll see how they adapt, but not something that the Bears needed. That's about all I've got.
Yeah, well, so like you said, there's a lot of those coaching vacancies. You have Tom Coughlin interviewing with a couple of teams. Chip Kelly's moving around. You got Lovie Smith, who was fired by the Bucs, which is just really strange. Doesn't really make sense that they would get rid of him because he seemed to be getting a pretty good team together. Just to, had to be patient. But apparently Tampa Bay is impatient. So then, of course, you've got the reign of Johnny Manziel. Like, nobody even knows where he is anymore, which is kind of concerning, I guess, if you're a Browns fan. Not really, actually, because he doesn't even want to be there. But, his clown train keeps chugging along. Well, I think that about wraps up this episode of the BNO Sports Show. As we said, this was it for college football. So coming up, we are going to be jumping into some other sports. Isn't that exciting news? So we're going to be going into some of the more relevant sports now that the football season is coming to an end. We'll still keep talking about the NFL, don't worry. But we've got some NBA news, some NHL stuff to cover. We're going to definitely diversify the B&O Sports Show. So, with that said, any last words, Garrett?
I think I'm good. Excited for this weekend. We're going to have a lot to talk about next week.
Yeah, really looking forward to this weekend of NFL playoffs. It's going to be fun. We'll have, like Garrett said, we'll have a lot to talk about next week. So, with that, we thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. Hope you've enjoyed the show. Please make sure to like and subscribe and share. And we will see you later.